Revealed, how an incredible blind date transformed a young woman's life after she admitted Eleanor was tangled in her own thoughts as she sat nervously in the cozy diner, the scent of coffee and fried food sinking into her skin. Despite the cheerful decor and vintage signs, anxiety twisted in her stomach. Her mother had heralded this blind date as the solution to Eleanor's stagnant life, an introduction to the real world outside her safe and familiar bubble. Yet, deep down, doubt gnawed at her. Who was she to chase anything beyond this predictable existence? Jake arrived, rugged with calloused hands stained in engine grease, and a welcoming smile that felt genuine. As they settled in, the jukebox crooned golden oldies that resonated with simpler times. Platefuls of homemade pie served before them offered comfort, a stark contrast to the discomfort bubbling within Eleanor. She felt a weighty tension between her expectations and reality. Her mother's relentless pursuit of perfection loomed over her like an indomitable shadow. Did she even deserve worth beyond this narrow path? The burn of anxiety flared further as Jake spoke passionately about his dream, his intention to launch a local auto shop designed to uplift the town. His ambition sparked something buried deep inside her, but what if she failed? What if this newfound yearning was just another fleeting whim? Before they could dive deeper, she felt compelled to share her fears. "Sometimes, I feel like I'm trapped," she admitted, voice trembling, "like I'm just living out the dreams of those before me." Jake's eyes softened, and encouragement radiated from him. But as he offered his vulnerability, his own struggles with debt and the pressures of responsibility, Eleanor's heart raced with longing and dread intertwined. Should she dare to leap towards something different, something beyond her routine? Yet whispers of societal judgment echoed in her mind. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Eleanor's determination flickered in the aftermath of that shared moment. Perhaps she could dare to dream, could face the intricacies of ambition instead of merely surviving. Enrolling in a local business course felt like a reckless endeavor, yet excitement bloomed as she took the first step towards something that dared to feel real. But as her mother learned of her plans, she reacted with disbelief, scoffing at the ridiculousness of chasing anything beyond her calling. The disappointment on her mother's face sliced through Eleanor, rekindling self-doubt, whispers of inadequacy swelling to deafening volume. Tension mounted at home, a battlefield of expectations and aspirations. Just as Eleanor began to buckle under the weight of pressure, an opportunity arose. Jake proposed a community project that resonated with both his and Eleanor's skills. Working together ignited something within her that had dimmed for years. Still, the scrutiny from her family and friends rose like a wall around her newfound purpose. What if this leap spiraled down into chaos? Their doubts hung heavy in the air, each disapproving glance compounded her desperation. As Eleanor and Jake discovered unexpected admiration from their town, profound fear crept in. Could the dreams they were cultivating withstand the weight of disillusionment? Torn between the comfort of conformity and the risk of transformation, Eleanor stood on the precipice, heart racing, contemplating her next move. Would she retreat into the shadows of others' expectations or step forward into the brilliant unknown? The answer remained just out of reach. Echoing in the silence of her indecision. Eleanor's heart thudded heavily in her chest as the days wore on, the implications of her choices suffocating in their weight. As she worked alongside Jake on the community project, her drive began to collide with entrenched fears. Each progress they made felt like a small iceberg floating on the surface of a tumultuous sea, threatening to capsize at any moment. Mornings came filled with a nervous anticipation that twisted inside her. She woke not just to the light streaming through her curtain, but to the dark tendrils of anxiety. Each shared brainstorming session with Jake lifted her spirits, threading hope through her fabric of uncertainty. Yet, as those moments flickered by, Eleanor obsessively replayed her mother's disapproving remarks. "You'll never be good enough if you chase fantasies, echoed in her mind the siren call of comfort drowning out the whispers of daring. That Wednesday, she sat across from Jake at their usual corner table in the diner, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee mug. The comfortable banter they usually shared felt tenuous, a fragile dance around the tension lingering in her thoughts. "Eleanor, are you okay? You seem distant." Jake's voice cut through her reverie, concern etched across his face. She hesitated, torn between honesty and self-protection. "I'm just wondering if this is the path for me. I don't know if I can make this work." Jake leaned in, a spark of passion igniting in his eyes. "You can't let fear dictate what you do. You have so much potential, and I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't see that in you." But his encouragement felt like sharp-edged glass. Potential? She wasn't sure she even owned that word. The grappling thought wrapped itself around her, squeezing tight. Could she be what Jake saw? Could she emerge victorious from layers of self-doubt, break free from the constraints her mother had helped bind tight? The moment of clarity struck her like lightning. She needed to confront her mother not in rebellion, but for validation. Not to prove her wrong, but to seek understanding. After an agonizing evening filled with restless thoughts, Eleanor decided she would reach out. That weekend, she invited her mother for lunch, the weight of her intentions pressing down harder than her own unsteady heartbeat. When her mother arrived, a floral print dress reflecting the sunshine, Eleanor felt a mixture of love and dread curl in her stomach. The conversation began pleasantly enough, with small talk about the weather and shared family gossip, but Eleanor knew the real talk loomed, a monster waiting in the shadows. "Mom, can we talk about the project I'm working on with Jake?" Her heart raced, words tumbling out clumsily, her mother's expression morphed, the smile fading into a frown. "Why must you throw away your future on this? You need stability, a steady income, not some childish dream. Why can't you see that I'm trying to create something meaningful? I can't live in the box you built." Eleanor's voice wavered, the full weight of her resolve crashing down around her. Her mother's face hardened, but something changed. A flicker of realization settled within her eyes. "I just worry, Eleanor. I want what's best for you. What's best for me. Maybe it's not about ambition to you, but to me, it feels like my lifeline." Eleanor's pulse quickened as she steadied her gaze, each word carved from a deeper belief she'd unearthed. The table between them felt like a chasm, yet she could sense her mother beginning to soften, the walls constructed over years trembling ever so slightly. As the gravity of their conversation settled, bruises of emotion coursed through both of them. Eleanor realized she needed to declare her dream. She would take ownership, would not back down, but as her mother's eyes glistened with restrained emotion, something profound hung unspoken. Eleanor felt her heart teeter once more, a sense of looming confrontation yet to be addressed. Would her mother truly accept her emerging path, or was resistance still to come? Eleanor inhaled deeply, the unease amplifying as she realized that the most crucial conversation was still ahead. The moment of self-assertion had begun, but could she endure the storms that awaited if her mother held fast to her fears? Determined yet wary, Eleanor braced herself as their lunch teetered into unresolved silence. The weight of her next words would determine her journey forward, a pulse of urgency thrumming through her veins. Eleanor's breath caught in her throat as her mother's silence stretched uncomfortably between them. She meticulously counted the seconds, the space filled with uncertainty hanging like a thick fog. Her heart yearned for connection, yet fear curled in the corners of her mind, tempting her to retract. Could she summon the courage to continue this vulnerable conversation? "Mom, I need you to trust me," Eleanor finally said, her voice steadying with newfound resolve. "This project, it's not just some whim. It's a part of who I am. I'm not turning my back on stability, I'm trying to carve out an existence that resonates with my spirit." Her mother's eyes narrowed slightly, skepticism returning like an unwelcome guest. "But what do you really know about bringing your dreams to life? You've got ideals, but do you have a plan?" The question stung, and Eleanor felt the walls of doubt closing in again. But instead of retreating, something ignited within her an urge to respond, to define her path more vehemently than ever. "I've been working closely with Jake," she began, energetic determination filtering through her hesitation. We have actionable goals, a timeline. This isn't just fantasy. It's about community impact, and I need to be a part of that. Eleanor watched her mother's expression soften, an internal struggle playing across her features. Eleanor, she sighed, and the softness in her tone unveiled layers of love embedded within her wariness. It's hard to see you step into something uncertain, especially when I've so often wished for your security. Eleanor nodded, understanding the depth of her mother's fears. But this uncertainty is where I can find my voice, Mom. If I compromise who I am, will I really be secure? Or just chained? The weight of those words hung in the air. With every moment, Eleanor felt the flickering light of identity breaking through her mother's fortified demeanor. Perhaps this dialogue could bridge the gap that had grown between them. After a long pause, her mother finally spoke, "All right, tell me more about this project. How can I support you?" The offer sparked an unexpected rush of warmth inside Eleanor. There was still hesitation there, but it felt different, more like an acknowledgement than an outright dismissal. Encouraged, Eleanor leaned in, eager to share. She unveiled the ideas and visions she had crafted with Jake, the plans for revitalizing spaces, envisioning collaborations, dismantling the isolation she had lined in her mind. With every detail she shared, Eleanor felt the shackles of doubt begin to loosen, replaced with threads of validation and external voice of approval translating into crucial internal momentum. It sounds ambitious, her mother finally admitted, her brow furrowing in contemplation. But still, you know the risks. Can you handle the pressure? Every risk I take is a possibility for learning, Eleanor declared. I want to excel at everything, but the growth will come regardless. I want to learn how to navigate these waters, not just stay anchored in safety. There was something undeniably transformative in that exchange, a subtle shift in the air that left Eleanor feeling lighter yet more resolute. She realized that this dynamic conversation wasn't merely about seeking her mother's approval but also redefining who she was as a daughter, no longer simply a reflection of her mother's expectations, but as an individual stepping into her own narrative. Yet, as the echoes of their discussion lingered, a fracture line emerged. The inevitable divergence of expectations was still looming in the background. Eleanor's heart raced again at the thought: would her mother ultimately be able to embrace her decision, or would her commitment to security overshadow Eleanor's growth? As the lunch came to a close, Eleanor understood that their journey was only beginning. A deeper confrontation loomed if her mother's fears resurfaced. Questions weighed heavy in her chest. It was one thing to express desires and another to challenge the status quo. Stepping outside the diner, sunlight streamed down, yet shadows of uncertainty lingered. What if her mother's acceptance today didn't translate to ongoing support? The path before her was fraught with the potential for conflict and doubt that could resurface at any moment. Eleanor inhaled the transformative air of possibility but felt a tinge of anxiety claw at her. The breakthrough hadn't provided a solid answer to her fears, but it had carved a crack in the walls of expectation. As she walked away with a mix of hope and apprehension, she wondered who truly held the power to shape her narrative, her or the looming echoes of doubt. The moment echoed within her. Where would this newfound voice lead? And would she dare to navigate the turbulent waters ahead? There was no looking back now. Eleanor's steps echoed in the growing distance from the diner, her mind racing with possibilities. The air was thick with newfound clarity, yet doubt still clung like a stubborn fog. She had taken her first leap, but what awaited her in the uncertain expanse ahead? She couldn't help but replay every word they exchanged, analyzing where her mother's words had faltered and where they had showcased her own resolve. As she approached her apartment, Eleanor had a powerful realization. The conversation had ignited something within her. It had shifted her perspective from seeking approval to embracing her own authority. She didn't need just her mother's acceptance, she needed to cultivate the ability to trust herself above all others. Each thought solidified her commitment to the project and to herself. Once inside, the four walls felt both familiar and constraining. The space was her sanctuary but also a reminder of the consistent safety net she had so readily clung to. She placed her bag on the table and stared at the wall where her vision board hung. Colorful cutouts of goals, dreams, and mantras, some blurred from where, adorned it. It struck her then, the stark contrast between her aspirations and her fear of judgment. She crossed to the board, running her fingers over images of bustling cafes, packed community workshops, and vibrant public spaces she wanted to help create. Each picture held the promise of connection and creativity, but also the weight of risk. Eleanor felt an impulsive surge of energy and began pulling items from around her apartment, books on entrepreneurship, articles on community-driven projects, and notes from her brainstorming sessions with Jake. As the papers piled up on her desk, she dove into a whirlwind of organization, determination feeding the frenzy. She crafted a refined action plan, detailing essential steps for the upcoming months, from logistical necessities to networking opportunities. And as she worked, the tide of doubt receded slightly. Structuring her thoughts and intentions visually granted her a sense of control, a way to command the direction of her burgeoning path. Yet, anxiety crept back, as she recognized that crafting a plan was only part of the challenge. Now came the execution, the real test of her resolve. Later that evening, her phone buzzed, breaking her concentration. It was Jake, asking if they could meet to discuss their project. His text ignited a spark. Did she have the courage to dive deeper into unknown waters, share her vision, and invite collaboration? What if doubts about her ideas resurfaced during their meetings, or worse, what if she were met with silence again? Yet, as uncertainty loomed, the sense of empowerment she had just rekindled pushed her towards acceptance. Eleanor took a moment, letting the anxiety wash through her. She thumbed a response, initiating a meeting for the very next day, a step towards solidifying her dreams into reality. But as night fell, the initial excitement was tested as fleeting thoughts probed her mind. Would the power of her ideas hold in the harsh light of critique? Would Jake embrace the scope of her vision, or would her needs conflict with his own? Doubt flickered once more amidst her resolve. The self-doubt she had thought she buried returned with a smirk, asking her if this newfound authority was but a fragile mask. In the dark confines of her bedroom, she leaned against the wall, lost in contemplation. Would she be able to support her dreams with the wisdom she had begun to uncover, or would she falter upon approaching the precipice of execution? The questions swirled within her, a cocktail of hope and anxiety, propelling her toward a budding recognition that her journey was only in its infancy. Whether she could genuinely defy expectations hinged on the decisions she made starting now. Eleanor tightened her jaw, recalling her mother's softer tones, the spark of connection she knew they shared, and the battles still to be fought. What awaited her in the morning meeting? Could she forge a path without losing herself to fear? The tension of the night hung heavy. It promised conflict but also the potential for growth. And as Eleanor finally laid down to rest, the horizon loomed before her. The path ahead would demand more than she had planned to give, but perhaps that was exactly what she needed. The evolution of her story was only beginning, and so too were the greater questions she would face. Tomorrow would bring clarity or chaos, but she was ready to uncover which it would be. The sun peeked through Eleanor's curtains, casting soft light across the room, yet the brightness felt indifferent to the storm brewing within her. She rose, each movement deliberate but weighed down by the heaviness of uncertainty. This was it, the day she would reveal her vision to Jake and perhaps forge a partnership that could elevate her aspirations into a tangible reality. But the thought of exposing her raw ambitions brought a familiar knot to her stomach. That eye in the shower, Eleanor methodically ran through her notes, categorizing her ideas, community spaces, workshops, innovative uses for local resources. As she reached for the shampoo, a doubt clawed at her. What if her ideas were too ambitious? What if Jake, with his experience, found her vision naive? Shaking her head slightly, she pushed those thoughts aside. She had worked too hard for this moment. Refusing to yield to anxiety felt like her first act of self-reclamation. After dressing, Eleanor strategically packed a portfolio containing detailed plans, diagrams of her concepts, and potential budgets. Each item represented not just her aspirations but also the countless hours she had poured into refining her vision. She took a long look in the mirror, the reflection staring back at her, a mix of defiance and trepidation. This was her time to step into her own narrative. The cafe where they agreed to meet was alive with chatter, a stark contrast to her internal dialogue. Eleanor arrived early, her heart racing as she claimed a table with a view. She glanced around, noticing the vibrancy around her, a tapestry of conversations and laughter, each person clearly in their element. What if she could create similar spaces, fostering connections through shared passions? The thought momentarily calmed her. When Jake walked in, Eleanor felt a rush of adrenaline. He was exactly as she remembered, confident and articulate, with a disarming smile that had always put her at ease. They exchanged casual greetings, but the underlying tension of the meeting lingered just beneath the surface. As they ordered coffee, Eleanor couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter would determine her path forward. Once seated, Jake opened their discussion with pleasantries about the evolving creative landscape. Yet Eleanor sensed an inquisitive spark behind his eyes, hinting he was eager to hear what she had prepared. The anticipation mounted as she realized this was her moment. Taking a deep breath, she launched into her presentation, detailing her vision with fervor and passion. As she articulated her ideas, the confidence she had cultivated unfolded. She spoke of collaboration, of building something that mattered, a place where voices could be shared and creativity could blossom. Josh listened intently, nodding occasionally, his expression a mix of contemplation and intrigue. For the first time, Eleanor felt her internal dialogue shifting. This wasn't just a presentation, it was a conversation, but as she reached the crux of her plan, she caught a flicker of doubt cross Jake's features. "It's ambitious," he said slowly, "but where do you see yourself fitting into this? Will it still be your vision if you bring others on board?" The question struck her with a clarity that demanded honesty. She had constructed a beautiful mosaic of ideas, but what about the core of her own identity? Eleanor paused, considering his words. "That's the point for me, Jake," she replied, her voice steady. "I want this to be collaborative, but I also want to maintain my essence within it. I've spent so long seeking approval, now I want to cultivate spaces that reflect who I am." As the discussion deepened, they debated logistics and potential hurdles, but Eleanor felt an awakening. This was a partnership that could challenge her, inspire her, and coax her out of her comfort zone without sacrificing her identity. She realized that the conflict wasn't just external, it was within, battling the fear of vulnerability. With each word exchanged, Eleanor grasped a crucial truth: she would surrender neither her control nor her authenticity. Jake's candid expressions ignited a challenge within her. She was ready to rise to it. When they finished, Eleanor couldn't shake the electricity in the air. Jake leaned back in his seat and hesitated before speaking. "I think we have something potent here, but we need to clarify our personal stakes first." As they parted ways, Eleanor walked through the bustling street with her head held a little higher. She could taste the possibility, but shadows of doubt lurked still. Would she be able to establish boundaries that honored her vision without losing either her self-confidence or her collaboration with Jake? Back home, she felt the weight of those questions as she began to process the meeting. What alliances had she forged, and what betrayals of self were yet untested? She knew she stood on the precipice of understanding a deeper truth about her motivations with each new interaction. What lay ahead? Would she embrace collaboration while preserving her soul, or would the journey extract more from her than she anticipated? In the quiet space of her apartment, Eleanor carried these tensions, foreshadowing the deliberations that awaited her. Tomorrow's decisions would draw her into uncharted waters, where she would face the most significant revelations yet. Eleanor awoke the next morning with renewed determination, yet the weight of yesterday's conversation lingered at the edges of her mind. She had shared her vision, but Jake's probing questions echoed within her, demanding introspection. What did she genuinely want from this partnership? Every line she had crafted in her plan seemed suddenly tainted with ambiguity. As she prepared for the day, she considered devoting time to further define her boundaries. This partnership wasn't merely about collaboration, it was also a battleground for preserving her vision. The idea electrified her, a tangible challenge she had the power to shape. With each passing moment, the conception of herself began to solidify like clay on a potter's wheel. At her workspace, she set out to revise her portfolio. The lively hues of her sketches transformed into stark notes that outlined her intrinsic motivations and values. She labeled sections not just by community interests, but by personal beliefs, authenticity, growth, creativity. It felt cathartic yet daunting to strip her ideas down to their core essence. This was a testament to self-awareness, as much a process of unearthing self-doubt as it was about affirming her ambitions. Mid-morning brought an adrenaline rush when she received a message from Jake. "Can we meet for lunch? I have some feedback and ideas on the next steps." The invitation felt like both an opportunity and a potential threat. Were they traversing a path of mutual discovery, or teetering on the edge of competing visions? The stakes felt higher. Eleanor clicked her pen nervously against the side of her desk, contemplating how best to approach their impending discussion. As they sat across from each other in a cozy corner bistro, Jake's demeanor was cordial yet intense. She could see the gears in his mind working, assessing the tenets of their previous conversation. "I've been thinking about how we can balance your vision with the practical aspects of making it happen," he began, launching into ideas she hadn't considered. Eleanor nodded, but part of her felt a growing apprehension. What if she inadvertently surrendered her voice in the process? Catching herself lost in thought, she steered the conversation back to her core beliefs. "I appreciate your insight, but I must emphasize something important. I want this project to reflect authenticity, not just economically driven decisions." Her voice carried a steadiness that surprised her. The look on Jake's face shifted. He seemed to be weighing her words deliberately. "Are you worried I might steer away from that? I see the potential in following your lead." Eleanor paused, recognizing the moment as a pivot point. She could either retreat into self-doubt or confront what it meant to be the leader of this partnership. "It's not about doubting your abilities, it's a matter of identity. If I lose sight of what I fundamentally believe in, what is left?" Jake leaned back, clearly impressed by her candor. "You're right. Finding that balance is essential. Your energy is what makes these ideas unique, Eleanor. It's not just about logistics, it's about creating a shared vision built on your values." Revelation surged within Eleanor as she articulated her approach. She felt an undeniable shift, not just in the dialogue but in her own understanding of the partnership. She was realizing that authenticity could be the very foundation of collaboration rather than a point of contention. The lunch concluded with renewed resolve and an agreed exploration. As they parted ways, Eleanor wondered if she had just taken a significant step towards not only a business venture but also personal evolution. Now, with boundaries freshly defined, her path felt both exhilarating and uncertain. Would she navigate the complexities of collaboration while staying true to herself? What unforeseen challenges awaited her as she delved deeper into shared visions? That night, Eleanor couldn't sleep. Images of their plans danced in her mind, colors intertwined, representing mixed emotions and shared aspirations. Suddenly, an unsettling question surfaced. Would Jake be able to embrace the vulnerability required to nurture this delicate balance, or would the partnership threaten her hard-won identity? Tomorrow promised more than pitches and contracts. It hinted at confrontation with her own fears about collaboration. What kind of leader would emerge when the moment of truth arrived? Eleanor spent the next day sifting through her portfolio, her mind racing from the possibilities that hung in the air after her lunch with Jake. After reviewing potential designs and strategies that could align with her vision, she felt invigorated yet overwhelmed. The time she dedicated to self-reflection served as a double-edged sword. Clarity and confusion danced in tandem within her. As she navigated sketches, it became evident that authenticity was her North Star, yet growing discomfort crept in. Was her insistence on authenticity an impediment to practicality? If she pushed too hard, could she alienate Jake? This haunting uncertainty began weaving its way into her psyche like a shadow she couldn't shake. Later that evening, Eleanor attended a networking event aimed at connecting creators and implementers, people she felt were too practical for her more abstract ideas. As she entered the bustling venue, she was struck by the decor, an eclectic mix of vibrant colors and innovative designs. But instead of thriving in the environment, she felt stifled. Amid the lively chatter, she found herself drawn into a conversation with a fellow designer, Mia. Their discussion began innocently enough. "So, what is your latest project?" Mia inquired, her genuine curiosity easing Eleanor's tension. Eleanor hesitated before responding. "I'm working on this collaborative venture with someone else," but she faltered, unsure how to explain her reservations without belittling Jake's contributions. She chose her words carefully. "I want to ensure it aligns with my core values, authenticity and creativity, but that balance is tricky." Mia nodded knowingly, her expression revealing empathy. "I get it. You know, you should embrace the tension, sometimes it's where the magic happens," she encouraged, her words resonating deep within Eleanor. Perhaps she was too focused on the threat of losing her voice when collaboration could also be an opportunity for growth. In that moment, Eleanor experienced a revelation. This partnership with Jake wasn't a threat, it represented a chance to amplify her vision, harnessing both her ideals and practical elements. What if she shifted her perspective from defensiveness to curiosity? The realization ignited a spark of excitement. With her newfound insight, Eleanor re-entered the evening's festivities with a fresh outlook. She engaged warmly with other attendees, allowing herself to be inspired by their stories. One engaging interaction flowed into the next, and with every connection, she slowly began to strip away her earlier fears. The night culminated in an unexpected encounter. She bumped into Jake, who decided to attend. The air between them felt charged with unspoken understanding as they traded stories and insights, and Eleanor felt the urge to express her evolving thoughts. "Jake," she began carefully, "I see our different strengths as something to explore together, as opposed to a reason for conflict." Excitement danced in her eyes, her nervousness replaced by a boldness that felt foreign yet exhilarating. "Let us create something that genuinely blends our ideas, rather than compromising one of us." Jake's face broke into a wide grin, revealing his own enthusiasm. "That's exactly what I'd hoped we could do. I have some thoughts I'd love to share, too." As they exchanged ideas, Eleanor felt the facade of her earlier self-doubt crack. This wasn't merely negotiation, it was the positive synergy of minds committed to a shared vision. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, both lighter and infinitely more collaborative than before. When Eleanor returned home, fatigue covered her like a warm blanket, yet she felt invigorated. It dawned on her that facing discomfort had a transformative impact. Her realization changed the dynamic of her partnership and herself, empowering her rather than diminishing her presence. Yet lingering in the back of her mind was a profound question: would this new perspective allow Jake to genuinely share in the vulnerability required of their collaboration? Trust would be crucial, and tests of that trust loomed on the horizon, especially considering their differing backgrounds. As sleep overtook her, Eleanor pondered how to cultivate that trust, knowing they were on the precipice of crafting something truly remarkable. Would they truly unite their contrasting visions into a formidable partnership, or would competing interests resurface? Only time would tell as she prepared for the next step in their journey. Eleanor awoke to the morning sun seeping through her window, illuminating her thoughts with a renewed determination. With every glance at her sketches scattered across her desk, she felt the pulse of potential. Today would mark the beginning of a proactive approach. She wouldn't simply wait for trust to develop, she would actively build it. While she brewed her coffee, her mind reeled with strategies for her collaboration with Jake. She needed to prioritize open dialogue, cultivate transparency, and share vulnerabilities. Would he be receptive? She suddenly feared that their initial excitement might wane under practical pressures, and her concern lingered like an uninvited guest at a gathering. To quell these doubts, she decided to frame their partnership as an evolving dialogue, intrinsic to the creative process. Eleanor started drafting an agenda for their meeting. The idea of presenting her expectations and listening to his excited her, but simultaneously, she wrestled with the anxiety of vulnerability. It was one thing to share her erratic thoughts with Mia, a fellow creative, but Jake. He represented a unique blend of practicality and vision, and further complicating matters, she sensed a personal stake in how he perceived her. Hours later, as she sat in her favorite cafe, she tossed her hair back and focused. The table before her was strewn with sketches, notes, and ideas, tools of her ambition. She envisioned their conversation unfolding like the creative process she cherished, a dance of ideas rather than a strict presentation. The cafe hummed with the energy of other creatives discussing their projects, and the comforting smell of coffee enveloped her. As she observed couples brainstorming, their spontaneous exchanges compelling her to pursue her own direction, she felt the thrill of possibility rise within. This was not about impressing Jake, but rather about inviting him into her world, fostering collaboration, and discovering where their individual strengths could intertwine. When Jake arrived, he was visibly enthusiastic. A smile surged across his face as he approached, radiating an energy that was infectious. "I've been thinking about what we discussed. I can see how this is going to work," he declared, pulling out his own sketches adorned with carefully structured designs. As they delved into exchanging ideas, Eleanor guided the discussion gently, highlighting her vision for authenticity. "I want our project to stand as a testament to both our identities," she shared, infusing her voice with passion. "It can still maintain relevance in the practical world while also resonating deeply with our creative instincts." Jake nodded, visibly intrigued. "Exactly. I've been considering ways to integrate those abstract concepts you value, even in areas where I usually approach things more methodically." His voice resonated with genuine interest. The hours flew by as they brainstormed, laughter punctuating serious discussions. Ideas bounced freely, some wildly impractical, others high potential. Eleanor marveled at how this exchange illuminated facets of her creativity she had long disregarded. With Jake's grounded perspective acting as a counterbalance, her abstract visions gained clarity, becoming something tangible and rooted. Yet beneath the excitement, Eleanor sensed an undercurrent of apprehension. Was Jake fully invested in this partnership, or was he merely playing along with her enthusiasm? She found herself glancing at him, searching for signs of genuine curiosity versus performative interest. The question loomed: could their collaboration transcend mere exchange of ideas into a true alliance of shared vulnerabilities and aspirations? Determined, she decided to address this directly. "What are your thoughts on the possibility of us taking this beyond just the project? I value your input greatly, but I think we both need to be open to what we feel about this partnership." The boldness surprised even her. Jake paused, the air thick with contemplation. His gaze shifted as he weighed her words. Finally, he responded, "I think trust is key, and I might be feeling a bit protective of my usual approach. But if we can find common ground, I think we can push both our limits." Eleanor's heart raced, resonating with the gravity of his admission. This openness was precisely what she needed, a tangible affirmation that their partnership could navigate the vistas of creativity and practicality together. But as they concluded their meeting, Eleanor couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing at the edge of a precipice. Their rapport was blooming, yet inherent challenges loomed. How would they manage the inevitable friction from their differing methodologies? With a determined mind, she left the cafe. The discussion had ignited her ambition, yet the road ahead felt precarious. The question now wasn't about their vision, it was about how they would navigate trust when the winds of uncertainty began to howl. Eleanor spent the next few days oscillating between excitement and dread, sitting before her desk, sketchbook open, but her mind adrift. The ideas generated during her meeting with Jake filled her thoughts, yet the specter of their conversation loomed larger. What if they couldn't align their visions? What if her vulnerabilities going unrecognized led to his disengagement? She found herself grappling with a sense of urgency, the need to solidify their partnership while simultaneously fearing the sheer exposure it entailed. The more she thought about it, the more the foundation they were building felt precarious. Could she truly take the leap toward intimacy in their professional relationship, or was she setting herself up for inevitable disappointment? Knowing that avoidance wouldn't resolve her worries, Eleanor resolved to reach out to Jake. They needed to cultivate a structured dialogue, establishing expectations for both creative and personal interaction. The act of sending him a message felt almost monumental, but she reminded herself of the commitment she had made to herself, to nurture this collaboration. "Jake, can we schedule another meeting? I want to dive deeper into how we can work together effectively. Establishing a foundation now will help us navigate any potential challenges." After sending the text, she paced her living room, her heart racing. Every shift of her thoughts felt like a decision point. Every moment of hesitation built the pressure inside her. A ping drew her back. He had replied affirmatively, suggesting they meet at the same cafe. She felt a rush of relief but also a wave of anxiety as she mentally prepared for their conversation. That evening, Eleanor meticulously curated her sketches, actively planning how she might address her concerns about trust. The question of sincerity hovered over her like a cloud. She wasn't merely a talent seeking validation, she craved to form a worthy partnership. Time stretched uncomfortably as she arrived at the cafe. Each passing minute was a reminder of her vulnerability clashing with her ambition. When Jake entered, his engrossed expression was familiar yet new. The warmth of his smile momentarily calmed her nerves, but doubt soon crept back. "Great to see you again," he said, sliding into the seat across from her, resting his sheets of paper before him. "I've refined a few ideas based on what we discussed. I'm excited to share." She nodded, appreciating his enthusiasm but feeling the weight of her own uncertainties. "I'm glad we're meeting. I wanted to talk about some thoughts on our process and how we can ensure both our voices resonate equally." His brow furrowed slightly, mirroring the seriousness of her admission. "Absolutely, I think it's smart to outline how we navigate our creative dynamics. I've sensed some tension, and I'm open to discussing how we can avoid missteps moving forward." Encouraged, Eleanor leaned in. "I want us to feel comfortable challenging each other, but I worry about how that might impact the trust we need to build. Sharing insecurities is tough, especially since I'm still finding my footing in this dynamic." Jake looked contemplative, then said, "I appreciate your honesty. It's daunting to put ourselves out there. If we can embrace our differences, perhaps we can create something unexpected. I'm willing to invest in exploring those deeper aspects with you." Feeling a flicker of hope ignited between them, she steadied her breath. Perhaps this dialogue could indeed become the scaffolding for their partnership. Slowly, they began sketching out their philosophies, their artistic ideals entwined with practical approaches. Yet, as their plans took shape, Eleanor couldn't ignore that the conversation was steering into uncharted emotional territory. She felt an almost electric awareness of both excitement and fear, the push-pull of opening up to Jake while questioning whether he would reciprocate her intention to delve deeper into their connection. Suddenly, the stakes soared higher. Their collaboration was no longer just a professional arrangement but tethered to the human experience of trust. The growth that blossomed felt monumental. But what if her willingness to be vulnerable only revealed more fractures in Jake's protective approach? As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue across their table, Eleanor knew they were at a tipping point. They were fumbling toward authenticity, yet the clarity of their vision was shrouded in uncertainty. Finally, Eleanor spoke, her voice steadier than she felt. "I think our commitment to this partnership needs to be stronger than just our creative compatibility. Are we ready to redefine what it means to collaborate in a way that embraces not just our strengths but also our fears?" Jake's eyes flickered with contemplation, the silence amplifying the tension between aspiration and apprehension. His answer would determine how far they were willing to venture into intimacy both as collaborators and individuals. Would their partnership withstand the weight of that trust? As Eleanor waited for his response, she felt the boundaries of their relationship teetering on the brink of transformation. Eleanor stood at the edge of a precipice, her heart pounding with the weight of their conversation. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows that mirrored the tension thickening the air between her and Jake. His gaze bore into her, a silent acknowledgement of the courage it took to lay bare their vulnerabilities. "Yes," Jake finally said, his voice steady but earnest. "I think we can redefine our collaboration. It's not just about merging our ideas, it's about supporting each other's growth, warts and all." Eleanor's heart soared. Here, before her, lay the intersection of ambition and authenticity, a space where both their voices could resound without compromise. She felt the chains of doubt shatter, replaced by a palpable energy that surged between them. This was more than just a professional commitment, it was a partnership defined by trust, transparency, and a shared vision that echoed with purpose. Eleanor had taken the plunge and, for the first time, she felt a solid footing beneath her. She wasn't just reacting to Jake's enthusiasm, she was actively shaping it to reflect her aspirations as well. With each passing minute in the cafe, Eleanor transformed her approach. They meticulously sketched out roles, expectations, and areas for compromise. Each outline solidified not just a business model, but a mutual recognition of the interconnectedness of their goals. "Let us commit to regular check-ins," Eleanor proposed. "Not just for updates, but to discuss our feelings about the project and how it's impacting us personally. We need to be open about what makes us uncomfortable or exhilarated." Jake nodded in agreement. "That sounds healthy. It's too easy to let our ambitions overshadow our emotional well-being. We should safeguard our purpose as we pursue this." For the first time, she witnessed Jake's eyes light up with understanding. He was invested not just in their project, but in her as a collaborator and friend. Their creative partnership began to morph into a profound alliance built on honesty and empathy, an arrangement that challenged both of them to evolve. Days passed, filled with collaborative meetings and vibrant brainstorming sessions. They began building a platform for their ideas, focused on integrating community resources and fostering connections. With each strategic move, Eleanor felt the flicker of confidence ignite into a blaze. Their project resonated with the collective heartbeat of the community, and she reveled in that synergy. As they engaged with local sponsors and pitched their proposal to possible stakeholders, recognition followed. The initial whispers of doubt transformed into affirmations from friends and supporters who believed in what they were creating. Eleanor emerged as a co-leader, shattering the mold of being a mere bystander in her own life, yet it was one particular evening that solidified her growth. During a community meeting, an audience member commented on Eleanor's clear articulation of vision and purpose. "It's evident you're passionate about this," they said, "and it shows. We need more voices like yours driving our projects." A wave of validation washed over her. Eleanor realized she was no longer seeking approval, she had achieved a recognition that stemmed from her unique perspective. Her initial interactions with Jake transformed into a symphony of collaboration and innovation, propelling her own ambitions into the limelight. The project steadily gained traction, and Eleanor found herself stepping confidently into the role she had always envisioned, not only as a leader but as a catalyst for change. Each successful meeting with partners was met with applause and admiration, and she began attending networking events not just as an invitee, but as a respected contributor in her own right. Now, standing in front of the project unveiled at what had once felt like an impossible dream, Eleanor looked out at the attendees, Jake at her side, pride radiating from both of them. The launch was a success, their collaborative efforts celebrated by a community eager for connection and inspiration. In that moment, Eleanor felt a wave of fulfillment wash over her, recognizing how far she had come. She was no longer a reflection of others' expectations, but a compass of her own direction. The whispers of doubt had faded into echoes of resilience, honed through her partnership and internal fortitude. Eleanor had conquered her fears, she had proven her competence, achieved her ambitions, and built an authentic existence that resonated far beyond the boundaries prescribed by her past. This was her true self, anchored in courage and ready to explore the uncharted territories of her future. Now was the time to embrace the vastness of her potential. You need to subscribe now to witness every transformative story that awaits. This is the moment to show your support for Eleanor's journey and others like it. Leave a like now to truly feed the algorithm and keep these stories alive. Don't just watch, comment your thoughts and reactions about Eleanor's extraordinary transformation, and remember, do not wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who could benefit from a story of personal overcoming. Only true fans of inspiring narratives understand the power of collective enthusiasm.